One of the key things that I think people have a hard time with is differentiating between being productive and being busy. So how do you differentiate between busyness and actual productivity?
Holy cow. So we're just going to come out the gate with the philosophical questions.
I know you can handle it.
Productive versus busy. At the end of the day, it's time management. That's a simple answer. You have to be able to schedule. See, okay, so I'm gonna go back a little bit because I'm a creative. A lot of people who are creative have a big issue with time management, right? We are creative. We want to just work in kind of like this vacuum. We want to say, oh man, just give me 6 hours and let me go crazy, right? But that doesn't really work when you are juggling a myriad of projects and a myriad of creative ideas. A great way to get busy without being productive is just that whole brainstorming thing. Brainstorming is amazing, but when you're just coming up with idea after idea after idea after idea, you have to act on something. So one of the techniques that I teach to some of my proteges and to some of my partners who I work with is small projects. That is a great way to be productive. If you're a writer and you have all these ideas for books and screenplays, start with a short story. Start with a journal entry. Get that piece of accomplishment. Feel like you've done something. Finish something. If you're a filmmaker and you want to make a big feature film, start with a short film. If you want to do a podcast that goes for years, start with just getting out a couple every once in a while. Just do something that you can start and finish. That's one of the best ways that you can be productive without just simply being busy.
No, that's a great answer. And I think a lot of people confuse being busy with being productive. And I had to learn that. Everyone who does any creative work has to learn that lesson. It's just a lesson that comes with it. Everybody needs to understand that just because you're doing something doesn't mean it's working towards a goal. And you know as well as I know, it's very easy to get lost in the sauce with this creative work.
Absolutely.
You just go down rabbit holes of stuff that has nothing to do with your project, but you get interested in. And another common problem in the creative space, and I will say it outright, I don't really believe in having like this creative block, because I don't view creativity as this mystical thing that comes up with inside of me. I view it as work. So when you get this, we all get stuck. Okay, I'll say that. We all get stuck. We all have ideas. How do you get out of that being stuck mode?
So I have a couple of ways I do it. The first thing is you have to, when you are pouring so much out in creativity, you have to replenish that bucket. And sometimes I find, and you have to be careful that this doesn't become a procrastination, but you have to fill yourself with creativity. Read, watch, listen, find inspiration, people and creators that inspire you. Oftentimes when I get stuck in any kind of way, the first thing I do is think about the project I'm working on, and I find similar projects. If I'm working on a sci-fi fantasy, I'm going to go watch some sci-fi fantasy. Also, I research. If you are a creator and you are not researching, then you are missing like half the game. You got to be researching. You got to be looking at things from the past. You got to be looking at philosophical things, historical things, different things from even different religions and cultures that you're not familiar with. If you look at some of the greatest movies, some of the greatest stories, you'll see that they were inspired by things from real life, right? They'll be inspired by historical things. They'll be inspired by certain practices that certain cultures have. That's true in movies like Star Wars, where everybody thought it was this original, big, mystical thing. And it is, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying Star Wars isn't original. Don't give me that. But you will see that a lot of the philosophies in Star Wars came from different cultures from way back in the day. So research is something that really helps me with a block. Consuming media, but again, not using it as a procrastination tool. If I say I'm going to, watch one episode of something, it can't turn into watching 12 episodes and I don't get anything done, So that is definitely a great tool for creatives. Like consume and research, read about, you have to fill your toolbox if you're going to use your tools when you're creating.
We both met because of CrossFit. We're in a CrossFit gym that you part own. It's a very cool and cathartic thing. And most people don't see creativity and physical fitness overlapping, but for me, they're the same because they all boil down to discipline. And I find that discipline is the best tool of creativity for me. Again, I've come from a music background. I've come from a podcasting background. I've come from a filmmaking background. Everything I do, my work, my leisure time is creative. And that has led me to have to become disciplined, whether it's physically, mentally, whatever. And I think they both kind of become part of the secret recipe. Do you agree with that? Because you're jacked, man. You're in good shape. You do the routine, you coach, you work out, you write. It all comes together for me.
Yes, there is a certain degree. I agree that discipline is part of it. I'm actually not the most disciplined. I'm a little bit more of a free-flowing guy. I work out at a different time every day. My schedule allows that for me to work out sometimes early in the morning, sometimes in the evening. I am definitely somebody who kind of free flows with my creativity as well. However, just as I was talking about before, you still have to put it on the calendar to get some work done. So there is a discipline to it. I'm going to go a slightly different direction with how creativity and art and working out work. I think that there's a creative element to exercise as well. For me, one of the reasons CrossFit has been amazing is because of the variety. As a writer and as someone who works as an editor and has clients from everything from people who are writing books to people who are making videos, I have all kinds of clients. That variety really helps me to stay into it. That's the thing that brings me back. Something like CrossFit also brings me in every day because I'm like, what are we going to do today? What's it going to be today? It's going to be something a little bit different. And then there is, you mentioned the being in shape, right? And that whole idea of, this is going to sound so like cliche and corny, but I like crafting, figuring out different ways to get different results out of my body, right? If I think like, okay, I want to get bigger a little bit here, or I want to lose weight or here. There is there's a creative element to trying to figure out the best way to get better at something, or to get more endurance, to get more durability, to get more strength, to get more cardio. There's all these different creative ways that come into it. And then, of course, I'm sure a lot of people think this, but working out, it releases endorphins. That helps me to create, that helps me to think outside the box, and all of those fun things that come with being able to build worlds and create things for other people to see and consume.
Yeah, I don't think it's that much different from the things you learn through exercise of any type are no different than the things you learn from doing a creative work, whether it's a movie, whether it's writing. Because the more I work on a documentary I'm working on, you just come away with these tips, these little things you learn to make the process easier, more enjoyable. If it's a little thing you messed up on a color wheel, you go, oh, wow, that looks really cool. Or if it's something you did with a very complicated lift, like a snatch, you do this one thing one time, you're like, that makes so much sense now. And that's creativity to me. You're figuring, being a creative, being a business owner, being an active person is just figuring shit out. That's the way I think about it. That's the way I think about it.
Yeah, I completely agree, because as you said, the tools you pick up from exercising, you can translate over. One of the biggest things I learned from CrossFit specifically was chaos management. You get into a workout, your body is just rebelling against you because you're tired, you're out of breath, things are aching and muscles are straining. And you're like, how do I get back on track and complete the next lift, complete the next rep? Same thing happens. Life is chaos. How do I get it back together and sit down and start writing again?
So you said your creative energy is a little more chaotic. Mine is too. A lot of creative people work in the way that they do, in the fields that they're in the, kind of the work from home gigs that everybody drools over, because that's how our minds work. So what does a day look like for you? Just a random Tuesday of the week. What does a day look like you as someone who's a writer and a ghost writer and all these things?
Every day looks different, of course, especially with me having such a flexible schedule. I am married and have 3 teenage kids currently. I say currently as if like, I mean, they're currently teenagers. You know what I mean? Teenagers. And so that has a lot to do with my schedule as well. But I would say a day for me, I will look at it more from a week perspective. I'll look at when I'm coaching, when I want to work out, what's going on with the family. And then I try to slot in these times to write and to create, appointments with clients, et cetera, et cetera. And then that's when I slot in. So like a random day for me is get up. I'm usually a morning coach. So I come into the gym, I coach some classes. If I'm feeling up to it, I'll get a tough workout in or some kind of workout at least. And then I find some time to get my writing in. Early morning, late afternoon is when I have to do it because I'm usually a night owl, but because I'm coaching at 5 a.m. in the morning sometimes, I can't stay up to, 1 o'clock writing. So that's when I'll get quite a bit of my writing in is like early morning and late morning and early afternoon. And then I'll do some stuff for the gym. I also do a lot of creative stuff for the gym. I do the social media for the gym. I make some graphics. I'm not a graphic designer, but I make like little posts for the gym. Anything that gets too advanced, I shop out to a contractor.
If you do creative work, you're by proxy a graphic designer, whether you want to be or not.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Truer words have rarely been spoken. So then I'll get requests from some of the other owners to say, hey, can you post this? So I'll work on that stuff. And I actually do quite a bit of mentoring, both creatively and with my gym, in my gym. I help to mentor some of the other coaches just with some time management and how they can and be better at communicating, things like that. So I help out a little bit with that, and then I'd also have some writing proteges that I work with too. So which is some of my favorite things to do is to work with young writers and young people who are trying to make it to the next level. I love trying to figure out how to level them up.
I think every piece of every business needs a creative person in it, because I think what we do the word creator is kind of annoying, but it's just like a blanket term for people who
overused a little bit.
It's like saying influencer or whatever you want, whatever these terms are. But when you do creative work, as like my full-time job is video editing all the time. That's all I do. Shoot video, edit video, create video, make people's video into clips for social media, video. So that's all I do. And I think a lot of businesses per se, the people that hire you and me to do their writing, to their video and stuff, they don't realize that they're telling a story, and story drives everything. Humans are just story-driven beings. Everything, like birds don't tell stories. No other creature on the planet, maybe whales or something. I don't know. They're pretty smart, dolphins, but humans are the storytelling being, and that's what we do. So do you find that a lot of your work just revolves around showing people how to tell a story?
Absolutely. I mean, a huge part of working with clients is teaching them that they are trying to tell a story. They come in and they say, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to get across. This is what I want to sell. And I'm like, okay, what's the story behind the product? What's the story behind the service you're trying to sell? But here's the craziest thing. My creative writing clients often don't realize how important story is, because what they tell me is the plot. This happens, this happens, this happens. Okay, that's the plot. What's the story? That is the story. That's a plot. Like, what's the story? What are you trying to get across? Not like your plot is a tool for how you get your story across. But if you don't know your story, what are we even talking about here? And then I bring them to their favorite shows and their favorite movies, and I explain to them, this is the plot of the movie. This is the story of the movie. Yeah. So that's where I find a lot of my work is done, with just trying to teach people how to tell stories, whether it's creative, whether it's academic. One of my other jobs, I do freelance personal statement writing. So when so I work with students who are trying to get into college, grad school, law school, medical school. The first thing they do is when they bring me their thing, they say, I just need you to read this, make sure it's good to go. And I'll read it. And all they've done is listed their accomplishments in paragraph form. I'm like, this is not a personal statement. This is your resume or your CV in paragraph form. Let's tell a story. And that's been some of the most fun things I do is help a person who has no desire to write and has to do it because it's part of the application, turning them into a storyteller. That is one of my fun. They'll never write anything else again, but I get to help them be a storyteller, even if it's just for a couple of days.
So what do you consider the fundamentals of storytelling? Because for me, it's one of those things I see something and I just inherently have this gut feeling that it has a story in it. I don't necessarily always know what it is, but I spend most of my time trying to just peel it out of something. It's just like out of the abyss. I'm trying to just grab onto this thing and just yank it out into the universe. And I don't know what it is. That's what it feels like to me to be creative, is just to like reach in this black hole and can't see anything. And I'm just pulling. And then I don't know what's going to come out, but it always is something. It might not be great. It might not be the best thing ever, but there's a thing that I made. So how do you explain storytelling to someone who just say I'm like, I don't know what a story is?
I'm going to answer your question with a question. What is it? Do you have something that you just need the world to know? Do you have something that you need the world to understand? Do you have a point of view that you want to express to the world? That's where I tell people to start with. The amount of people who don't know that often is surprising to me because they say, I want to be a writer. I want to write songs. I want to write screenplays. I want to write. And then I ask them, well, kind of, why do you want to do it? And if their answer is, I want to be famous or some version of that, I want a lot of people to see my stuff. I'm like, okay, we're already on the wrong path. Your story, I spent a lot of time in my creative writing courses and some of my training courses. The good professors and teachers and trainers I had, they wanted us to find out what made us tick. What were we passionate about? That's important, right? And if you can figure out what you're passionate about, then you can tell a story. All of the other stuff. So I love sci-fi. I love fantasy. I mean, I love a lot of different things. Those are like my two favorite things. I tell people all the time, you can take the most complicated world that you've ever seen, and if you can't pare that down to a simple sentence, then you're kind of missing the point of it, or you don't really understand what the purpose of it was made. Like, so one of my favorite movies is Inception. Are you familiar with Inception? It's very complicated. Dreams inside of dreams, and there's a dream heist, and there's all these characters, and they're doing all this crazy stuff. There's car chases, and there's just, it's incredible. And it's a mind-bending movie. That movie is about one thing, a man trying to get back to his kids, period. And I tell people that if you know what your story is, everything else is variable. Everything else is different elements that you add to help tell your story, but that's your story. There's plenty of stories about a person trying to get back to their kids, but how are they told? That's the window dressing. That's the story. Find out what you want to do. This could have been something that Christopher Nolan was very passionate about family. If he's very passionate about family being reunited or feeling catharsis, because remember, it wasn't just about the one character getting back to his kids, but it was about another character trying to reconcile what his father thought about him. The entire movie was about fathers and children. That's what it was about. So I often ask people, what is it that you want to express to the world? What are you passionate about? Now, you can take all those crazy sci-fi elements. Now, I want you to turn those into how to express the ways that your story, the core of your story, how does that do that? It's just like writing a paper. You have your thesis, and then you have the elements that prove your thesis or that argue your thesis. You can take a story about a man who wants to get back to his children, and it could be a sci-fi epic, or it could be a coming-of-age story. They're still about the same story. You've just done it in different ways.
So yes, I think I don't want to say a problem, but I think it is a problem, if I'm being honest with myself. A lot of people don't have a purpose, it feels like, currently. And, you know, I only live in the time I live in. I can't speak for ancient Greece and Rome and everything up through now into the future, but I feel like there's this crisis of identity going on, or especially with a lot of young people nowadays. And I don't think enough people sit around and think about stuff, because social media has been all encompassing. And I didn't realize this until a month ago. I took all social media off my phone. 100%. Not
That's brave.
YouTube, not nothing. I have no YouTube. I have no Facebook, Instagram, no access. I have to be at a computer to access it. And my anxiety levels have dropped down, I would say, by 50%.
Yeah.
I don't stay up at night just reeling about this and that. And back to what you said, I'm the kind of person who will force my will onto myself. If I have a deadline for a video, I don't care if there's not a juice drop to be milked for creativity. It's getting done, because that's just how I am. I just am very, hard on myself when it comes to that stuff. It is what it is. Do it. But I don't even have to struggle with that right now, because I can't say in the last 3 to 5 years, I've just turned on Netflix and watched a documentary. And I'm being honest, because I think a lot of people are doing this. And I've sat and watched probably 15 documentaries in the last month, just like back to back in bed.
Because no social media.
And there's nothing to do. And I'm just thinking about them.
Yeah.
And it's made my documentaries that I'm working on better, because I'm actually paying attention to the thing. And I'm also having time where, instead of looking at my phone while something's exporting and it takes 15 minutes, I'm not scrolling Instagram. I'm just sitting there going, And I just don't have this panic anymore. And I think a lot of people don't get this ability to just sit down and think about shit. And I don't know if you see that, but
Absolutely.
I feel so much better.
I mean, social media does. I don't want to sit here and like bag on social media. I'm not going to be one of those people who will be like, it's the worst thing. It can be a great thing, but it's just like anything else. It can be a great thing used as a tool. It can also be something that is used for a lot of bad stuff, especially like I said, my wife is a physician, and she has seen the studies that have talked about how consuming social media, I think it does a lot of the thinking for us when we're just scrolling through. Oh, that's funny. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, I agree with that. Oh, I don't agree with that. So it's like it's doing the thinking for us. And I agree. I don't think a lot of people do just sit there and kind of think with their thoughts. And when you start talking about young people and trying to figure out what they believe or what their story is or what stories they want to tell or what they want to express to the world, I believe that social media sometimes has this ability to have them thinking so many different things, not just young people have them thinking so much different things that they don't have time to strip away and figure out, wait, what do I actually think about this? Or am I just regurgitating someone else's opinion or someone else's reaction to an opinion or someone else's reaction to a reaction to an opinion? And it just gets all jumbled up. So I think that definitely I think that's a great idea, is to unplug. And we tell this to our kids, and I tell this to young people. You do have to take time to unplug sometimes, even if it's not a complete cold turkey. At least pull back, So
Well, it's everything can be taken to the full extent, or it can be used as something. You can drink with your buddies every once in a while, or you can be a raging alcoholic. It's the same with social media. If you can control the circumstances, but I don't think I can't say anything bad about social media. If it wasn't for social media, I wouldn't have a job. That's right. What I do, but I don't think it's bad. I think it's a great way to connect with people. It's a great way to share stuff with your family. And I've been a lot more deliberate about the things I post instead of just every dumb little thing that happens. It's like, who cares, dude? Just, and I don't have anything against it, but I think for creative people who work in or want to be creative, you have to kind of go into that wilderness sometimes and be a part. I think that is part of creativity to me, is just going into the unknown and just, like I said, pulling the shadow figure story out of the abyss. That's just how I operate. And I think that's what fitness does a little bit. It kind of takes you out of yourself. There's no cell phone when you're working out if you're doing it right. And so aside from that, I think I have a lot of weird quirks about me. I mean, everybody does, but it seems to be more prevalent in creative people. Do you have any weird, I don't want to say like rituals or stuff, but do you have any weird kind of things you do to get creative when things aren't working?
Yeah. So long drives. I am someone who loves to go on just a long drive, and just because, again, that's someplace where you can't stare at your phone. I hope
you're not supposed to.
I hope you're not staring at your phone. I get very nervous when I'm driving next to someone who's like staring right at their phone.
I saw a guy watching a basketball game in his car last night, and I was like, no way,
I've seen that before. I was like, it's crazy. So I long drive. So even I'll go, if I know that I have the day to write, I have a home office, but if I know that I don't have any appointments, I will just drive to like Ann Arbor, or I'll drive to like Lansing or something, just a long drive. That really helps me kind of get into it. I've gotten some of my best ideas on long drives, and every once in a while, it'll be a long drive where I'm with my wife and she's getting the unfiltered version of the story just kind of coming out of me. There's definitely certain songs. I love movie soundtracks. I listen to epic movie soundtracks. That's one of my things. And I think those two things are kind of things that probably quite a few people, use long drives and get my best ideas in the shower kind of thing, But yeah, there's some specific songs and music I listen to that helps me get into it. I mean, and then exercise, absolutely. If I'm sitting at my desk and I'm banging my head on the computer screen, I'm going to the gym. But you already been to the gym today. I'm going again.
Doesn't hurt to go twice.
It doesn't hurt to go again.
I've found that, and this is kind of a new rule I've recently made for myself in the last month or so. I try to get up and get, breakfast coffee. That's very important because of the weightlifting stuff that, we're very accustomed to. You have to eat enough. It's just it's a big deal. I don't like breakfast. I freaking hate breakfast. If in an ideal world, I would never eat breakfast because I hate it. Because as soon as I wake up, my brain just starts spinning and I want to get to work and start doing things. And so I basically make the fastest breakfast I can, get all that crap out of the way, get my coffee. I sit down at my desk and I dedicate the first 3 to 4 hours of the day strictly to the creative stuff. No email, no taxes, no accounting crap. It's the documentary, it's the book, it's the stuff that takes the most energy. And I think there's this perception of creative people that they just kind of sit around all day and they're kind of lazy, but that's doing creative work makes me so much more tired mentally than I used to work construction. I'd work 12, 13-hour days and I'll do 4 hours of creative work and I could go to bed. So do you find that you have these uninterrupted periods throughout the week where you just dedicate to this specifically, and then that time helps you get more done than just sitting there and saying, I have 8 hours to work on this day, I'm going to get 8 hours in? I feel like these small windows produce so much more than these uninspired little sections throughout the day, like, oh, I'm going to wake up and go screw around for a few hours and then get to work. I just don't get anything done.
I absolutely agree. Like I said, a little bit chaotic for me. Every day is different. There are days that are like a more free flowing, but for sure, the days where I can say, all right, yeah, let's get right to it. Because to your point, creative energy is sometimes immense. The creative energy it takes to do things, it's immense. You're creating sometimes out of thin air. And you talked about construction, and I've had different kinds of jobs before. Most of the time, those jobs, you come in and you know what you're doing, right? It's laid out for you. This is the project for today. This is what you're doing. These are the customers you have to take care of. You already know what you're doing. When you sit down with that blank screen, when you sit down with that blank piece of paper, when you sit down with that blank editing timeline, you are you're taking so much effort to build things and create things and make things make sense that it does certainly take a lot of energy. So yes, absolutely. There are those times when it's like, okay, I got to get up, like I said, get the things that I have to get out the way done and then get right to it. I agree. Those are sometimes the most creative, the most, when you have the most energy, because you know what, there's this thing that this made me think of this. I once read this great article, two articles. I'll tell you about two articles really quickly. One article was about what's the difference between everyone is a maker or a manager, and makers work in long increments, 4, 6, 8 hours, right? So your creatives, your computer programmers, your crafts people who are in the workshop, they work in long chunks of hours. Managers work in short chunks of hours. I have a meeting here. I have to take care of this business here. I got to do this here. So they were like, hour and a half at the most. A lot of people don't realize what they are. They don't know whether they're a manager and a maker. And I remember I had no idea. And I was wondering why I was so frustrated when people would say, like, you have to work, like, you have to schedule every day right at the same time. I was like, that doesn't work for me. And that's because that's how a manager would do something. Oh, every day I make sure I answer my phone calls at this time, whatever, right? Meanwhile, if you try to tell a manager, hey, just get the project done, let me know when you're finished, they don't know what to do with that because they're like, no, tell me. I need times. So once I figured that out, I realized, one, how to maximize my maker hours. So when you start talking about making sure that you do have those dedicated times, I recognize, okay, how do I fit my maker acumen into a manager's day, right? So kind of mixing it. So that was a great article that helped me and my wife to understand each other. I'm a maker. She's a manager. And then when you start talking about that creative energy, I read this other article, and it was about melancholy, right? That kind of that sadness. It's not depression, but it's a sadness. It's a longing. It's a nostalgia. And creatives deal with that quite a bit, right?
Understatement.
And I read this article that talked about, and I agree, and it's kind of philosophical, but I agree with it. The idea is our best creative work comes when our mood is swinging up. Not when it's at the top, but when it's on its way up. But in order for us to be swinging up, we got to get down. And so I realized, oh my gosh, like that was so true. Like I would go through those days where I'm just like, life sucks. I'm a terrible writer. No one's ever going to read my stuff. And then when I started feeling good, that's when I was like, oh my gosh, it's coming to me right now. But it was when I was on that upswing. And so recognizing those periods has actually helped. So I know that, okay, if I'm feeling a certain way for a couple of days and things, and I'm having a little bit of anxiety, I know that an upswing is coming. And so just be ready for it. Be ready to ride that wave when it comes.
Yeah, I've found too that when I get those days, they usually come in like 2-3 day windows, I find, for me. And it's just out of nowhere. I just wake up one day and feel like shit. And those are the days where I run errands. I'll go to freaking Costco and buy all my food. I'll just get out of the house because I don't mind being home all the time. It's not a problem for me. Like I have my creative little cave in the back of my house where I just exist and it doesn't bother me. But there's those days where you just don't want to get up out of bed. Usually I can't wait to get out of bed because I'm ready to go. I'm working on 50 things at once and all of them need attention. I'm hyped. One pulls inspiration. But those days where I feel like shit, I don't even fight it anymore. I just turn the computer off, or I'll go hike on the woods, or I will go to run any errand. I would just go to the bookstore and walk around and just, oh, cool. What's going on? Because I know that it'll, like you said, I know it comes back. And that's just something I've learned about myself. Again, this self-reflection thing, I know it sounds new age and hip and all this bullshit, but You need it.
You have to know yourself. You have self-reflection is a huge part. I'm a huge advocate of therapy. I'm a huge advocate. And I started seeing a therapist back in, I want to say 2014. And I was dealing with a lot of anxiety and I had no idea where it was.
Yeah.
I had no idea. Like, I was like, everyone knows me. I'm this happy-go-lucky guy. I'm always really cool, but I was dealing with anxiety myself. And going to a therapist helped me to start to self-reflect in a more deeper way, trying to know myself, know when my moods are coming and going, and figuring out how to put words to the things I'm feeling. That helps so much. So I don't think it's like, like you said, it sounds new agey, but it should be like standard operating procedure, reflect, know yourself, figure yourself out.
Well, pretty much you could save a lot of money on self-help books and business books and all this. Basically, it boils down to figure your shit out first before you start worrying about what is going on with everybody else. I mean, if you can do that, you're ahead of a lot of people. And,
Absolutely.
I've never been to a therapist, but I do spend a lot of time reading philosophy and things, and that forces you to think in your own head about stuff. And you really get to know that, I think an important thing for creatives to realize, and I still suck at this, is nobody gives a shit what you're doing.
Yeah.
We all think we're so damn important.
So important.
I'm so fucking important.
I'm going to change the world with my amazing creations.
The people who are around you in your circle, like I have good close friends who we talk about our projects all the time. Outside of that, they don't give a shit. And they're also working on their own project. So they're like, cool, dude, I'm happy for you. And I'm also working on my own project. Because if you think about yourself, again, reflect on your own stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Do I think about what you're working on every day? No. I might say, yeah, Steffon's really creative dude. I know him. He does awesome work. But I don't just sit there and think, I wonder what Steffon's writing right now. I wonder if he's writing that book. I'm like, I have a freaking project I'm working on. I need to work on this and I'm excited. So that's just taken my anxiety down a ton because nobody's thinking about you. And that sounds depressing, but it's actually really helpful.
I mean, literally. And you are one of the fortunate people who are able to figure that out on your own. I needed a therapist to tell me that. The therapist like, nobody gives a F what you're working on. No, like I needed a therapist to tell me that, where I was literally so wrapped up in what other people were thinking, not in a way where I was feeling like I had to know what they were thinking about me, but in a way where I was actually kind of scared to create in certain ways because I was afraid that certain communities that I'm in would not be cool with it.
I know that feeling very well.
And where I'm like, and I was like, oh man, well, if I put this in my story, what are all of my Christian friends going to think? And then I was like, oh, wait a minute. They don't care. Like, I mean, like, like they don't like, it's like, oh, if I put this in my story, what are all my people on the East Coast? Like, I'm a part of a lot of different communities, as we all are. And if we are creating in a way where, don't get me wrong, I think that we should create with ideas that can affect community in ways. Absolutely. You tell stories, to bring light to certain communities. You bring stories to challenge certain communities. You bring stories to bring communities together. There's all kinds of, but at the same time, you still have to do it from the point of view you're going, and you can't be scared to wonder, it's like, okay, what are people going to think if I do this? Will they not like me anymore? Will they think less of me? Will they think that I'm not what I said I was? Because of course, when we get into our storytelling, when we get into our creativity, people do see some different sides of us that we don't like. I don't go around just talking about the things that I like. I can't be everything that my characters are in a story. Like, that'd be impossible. I have to be able to create characters from all kinds of different things. So yeah, you'll read a character and you'll be like, oh my gosh, like the Steffon I know, like, how did he write that? I was like, well, sometimes I go to some places that you don't expect.
No, and I think part of the point of creativity is to challenge people's, it's not necessarily to be offensive. And, some art, there's a place for that, because that making people uncomfortable pushes the boundaries and again makes them think about things. That's the point of art. But I don't think that anybody should be scared to put a message out, because the hardest thing for me to learn as just a regular Midwestern Ohio dude is that no matter how perfectly worded and unoffensive you try and make something, you're gonna piss someone off.
You're gonna piss somebody.
So if you're gonna piss them off, just say what you
Just
again, if you stand for something, just
stand on it and stand on it.
And if they don't agree, that's okay.
It's okay. Absolutely. And that's the thing. And so, and I want to go back just a little bit, because I said every story needs to have a message. Doesn't mean every story has to be deep, right? Your message could be like, sometimes it's good to have fun. That could be your message, right? So but it has to be something. And you, again, just like you said, you can't be afraid that people aren't going to respond to it. Sometimes stories aren't meant to be responded to by everybody. Sometimes the story's not for you.
Yeah, that's a huge thing too. That is a huge thing, because on the YouTube channels I do, at first, when the channel started to grow pretty rapidly, I was getting comments and I'm just, the shit people say online is insane.
It's wild.
And then I realized, it doesn't matter, because this isn't for them. Why am I worried about one guy telling me he doesn't like what I'm making when there's 200,000 other people who are like, I liked this a lot. Oh, thanks. Why am I upset about the one dude? There's this great button I found on all social media platforms.
What is it? Tell me about it.
Delete.
What?
You can delete comments. You are under no obligation to respond to them, and you can block people.
I love it.
It's
I love
amazing.
it. I have had a great time actually cleansing my social media feed over the last few years, where I was like, you know what? Whenever this person posts, it kind of makes me upset. So I'm going to not have them on. I don't need them. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. And no one has ever messaged me like, hey, did you unfriend me? Like, no one has ever done that. Yes. And I will respond, yes, I did. If you want to know why, we can talk about it. But
well, that whole thing basically boiled down to being your authentic self. And that's the one thing, the one thing that there isn't out on the earth is you, me. There ain't another one. You got you have your own set of beliefs. You have your own set of things you enjoy. You have your own set of things you absolutely hate. I freaking hate vegetables, dude. I just can't stand the shit. I know you're not supposed to say that, but it's just me. And also, my wife loves them. She can't understand how I don't want to eat broccoli. It drives her insane. So what do you think the value is, especially right now in like what we talked about with social media? I don't think a lot of people are being their authentic selves, but I don't think that's on purpose. I think they just don't know who their authentic self is. And how do you find that? How do you find yourself?
Oh my gosh, that is an incredible question, because I think it's both something where it's a very nebulous thing. It's hard to pin down how to tell someone how to find themselves. At the same time, there's like a million different ways that you can go about trying to find yourself. So I guess that's kind of the same thing, no way in every way. But I think you have to really think about the things that get your blood boiling, almost the things that make that make you passionate, that make you excited, because there's plenty of things that I can scroll down and I'm like, oh, okay, that person, whatever. Or this person said whatever. I don't really care. And then there's certain things that'll scroll down and be like, oh my gosh, like that makes me really upset. And I think that's a beginning of way, or makes me feel some type of way. And I think people have to try to find what that is, and they have to kind of lean into it a little bit and see why is it that every time I see this certain thing, or why is it that every time I hear about this kind of story, it makes my heart either beat or hurt or jump for joy, and kind of lean into that and figure out why that is. I think that's how people can kind of find themselves and not just be swayed by so many opinions. I think when we start talking about social media, are you getting upset about someone's opinion? Or are you getting upset about someone's, I don't know, maybe belief? Maybe that's kind of like the balance there, because I can always tell when someone's just writing something or putting something out there that is just to be provocative rather than to actually what they're actually believing. Not only that, but I mean, look at the world around you. What are you passionate about? Is there, when you hear about hungry kids, does that make your heart hurt, right? When you hear about is poverty, does that make your heart hurt? Like when you hear about someone trying to, I don't know, take certain rights away that you believe in, does that make you get passionate? I think that's a way for people to really find themselves. Are you lovesick? Are you someone who like falls in love real easily? Are you someone who doesn't fall in love easy? I mean, these are those things that you just kind of got to begin to recognize about yourself. You have to be a student of yourself into a certain way. And I know that sounds very fancy and technical, but I think it's just a matter of kind of figuring out, okay, why did this make me so excited? Why did this make me so angry? Why did this make me so, and why is this making me angry? While this pretty apathetic about it, really care, right? We all have that somewhere. And it's just recognizing it and not thinking to yourself, I'm just mad about this because everybody should be mad about this. No, not everybody should be mad about it. You're mad about it because it's something that's passionate to you. Explore that. And not everybody's going to have the same passion. Like, why aren't you, like when someone says, why aren't you as upset about this as I am? I mean, it's not a big deal to me. I'm not saying it's not a big deal to you. Go for it. We need to all have different passions so that we can all solve different problems, so that we can all tell different stories. If we were all angry and excited about the same exact thing, those are the only two things that would get done. We all need to be passionate about it, so I think that that's an important way to try to find yourself, is like, just be cognizant of those cues. If you are really riled up about something, figure out why.
I think it's important also with things that you get irrationally upset about. Sometimes you're in your own, I guess the only way I could think to put it is you're in your own bullshit. And sometimes you need to question why you think that. Because there's a lot of beliefs that a lot of people have, myself included, growing up, that I don't necessarily never understood why I had them. And then I would stop and think about them. And I don't really believe this. It's just something that I've always has been the way that it is. And I don't think I agree with myself. And I think, again, you have to take time. Maybe it's a self-centeredness thing. I don't know. But I sit around and think about how really stupid a lot of the shit I do is all the time. And I just ask, why are you doing this? And at some point you just crack this nut and you're like, oh yeah, my grandma said that when I was 10 and it's just always something I thought,
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people don't do that either. If something, whether you voted for this guy or that guy, at the end of the day, like, it was the whole thing that's going on right now. Like, I'm not a very political person. Like, I just am not, like, it's one of those things that doesn't interest me, but for many people, it is a big part of their life. And they, I think my dad just only watches news. Like, that's his whole day. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But, I just have I'm a history nerd. I love history. I'm pretty sure the same shit happened when like Reagan was running for president, and it just never ends. So I think in just my head, it kind of goes down that rabbit hole, but it's challenging these beliefs of, well, why is people reacting this way? Why am I reacting? And I just, again, I don't think people are thinking about this shit in their own heads. They're just kind of letting social media or people around them dictate why they think this. And I think we all need to just sit down and think about stuff more.
Yeah, I think that we are definitely affected by some of the things that were ingrained in us in our formative years. Some of that is natural because we are kids and adults. That's how you learn stuff. But I do think that it's very important for us as we become older to challenge the things that we have learned from those who ingrain those things in us. And sometimes people are stuck in, and I find this with a lot of my creative clients, they take certain things as truth. And so when I challenge them and say, hey, why don't you look at your story from this different perspective? They struggle because, no, this is the perspective that I have. And I said, well, you're writing, but this is the story you're writing. So maybe that perspective is not, you're not as sold on it as you think you are, but you think that you have to be because you're obligated to it because it was what you was taught. So I think it is very important to kind of challenge some of the things that you take as absolute truth. Now, don't get me wrong. I am someone who is very much into evidence-based stuff. I'm very much into, I'm not gonna challenge something just to be contrarian. Like if the science bears out, if the history bears out, I'm going to be like, okay, yeah, like but at the same time, when it comes to sometimes opinions are our core values, sometimes we got to make sure, are those our core values or are those somebody else's core values? And we got to find that. I think that's very important. And when we start talking about creativity, it's extremely important that you're going off of your own core values rather than just importing someone else's in and trying to run with those.
Well, I think it just as a whole, as society, and this might be a little too broad of a statement, but it's my show and I'll say it. I think we've lost the ability to have a decent argument without getting pissed.
Absolutely.
Because I was reading some history stuff about politicians, and they would go on stage and just duke it out. Like, no, this is absolutely wrong. Mm-hmm. You are in the wrong. This is absolute just nonsense. And they would go, and then they would just be like, oh, hey, thanks, man. We'll see. I'll see you next time. And everything is a fight now. Everything has to be so like life-ending anger. It's like people used to be able to just sit there and go, hey, man, I think what you're saying is bullshit. And you could say, yeah, I think what you're saying is bullshit. And then they would go drink a beer and everything would be okay. But it's just, I can't do that. Like I've had to try civil conversations about whatever, wildlife conservation or this and that. And people just get so mad and I'm trying to figure it out. And I wasn't really that serious. I mean, I was just saying what I've read and knew. I wasn't trying to like degrade your being, but
yeah, I think I have a lot of opinions specifically about that. I know that's not what we're about, but I think I think this plays into creativity. So much of these discussions have become infotainment. And so who wants to sit around and listen to two people have a civilized conversation? No one. Everyone
hopefully
wants, yeah. So, hopefully a lot of people, yeah. When you're going for some of those big things, a lot of people say, how do we make this as entertaining as possible? And the best way to make things entertaining is to argue and to be really loud. That's why sports talk radio has become so much about debating rather than analyzing. It's debating now. And because it's entertaining and a lot of people like it. We've been watching people fight since, the days of the Coliseum. It is one of the most entertaining things. I think the problem becomes when people who are trying to create that argument as entertainment, then people start taking it and running with it for real. Like some of the things that people are saying just as argument for entertainment. And so don't get me wrong, as a creative, I thrive on creating compelling conflict. So I understand.
No, that's literally one of the tenets of how to be successful on YouTube is you can either create really engaging content or you can just be mad about shit on the internet. And one of them's a hell of a lot easier than the other.
Right. Should we just devolve into an argument right now? Hey, man.
That would be the best thing we could ever do for this show. So we're running late here. I know you've been up early. I'm one of those people that gets up at like 8, so it's really not that big of a deal for me. So last question I have for you: if you could give yourself as young Steffon going into this, knowing you wanted to be a writer, and go back in time and say some good advice to give your young self to bring you to where you're at, what would you tell your teenage self when you're all angsty and don't know what you want to do fully?
One of the greatest pieces of advice I ever got, and I think I was in like my early 20s, so I was still relatively young. I might have been in high school. But someone once told me, you're never ready for a promotion until you're overqualified for your current position. And I did not take that to heart as much as I should have. I did it more of this kind of idea of, well, I know that I have some talent. I know that I'm pretty creative. I'm gregarious. I got the gift of gab. I'll ride that and somebody will recognize me. Somebody will recognize my work. And I didn't realize what it took to become overqualified. I didn't realize that you still had to put in that work. I mean, everyone, you start talking about the greatest I'll just go with, the greatest basketball players, right? Everybody, oh, Jordan's the greatest of all time. I know. There's debates about that, and but whatever. And it's not necessarily my belief. But anyway, Michael Jordan's the greatest of all time. But everybody's like, yeah, but he also worked his ass off, right? Every single time. Like that's what helps. So I think I didn't recognize that. And if I had to go back and tell myself something, I said, like, figure out how to become overqualified. Like, find that, become overqualified. And when you're talking about creativity, there's no roadmap, right? If I was going to be a lawyer, if I was going to be a doctor, if I was going to be a construction worker, you learn the trade, you go to school, da-da-da-da-da. In creativity, we could hopefully we find some good mentors. Hopefully we find some good YouTube videos to watch. Hopefully, but and there's definitely basics to the craft. All the lighting and the technical stuff it took to get this together. When we create stories, how do we do it? What's the technical sides of it? But there's no roadmap. It's just we're not going in a river. We're being thrown into an ocean. And so that's what I would say. I would say figure out how to become overqualified, no matter what that takes. Like, you're going to stumble, you're going to trip over yourself, but try to become overqualified before you expect to get to the next level.
No, I think that is one of the most, in a world of virality, that's heavily misjudged what just years of hard work will get you. Because again, people will see this podcast and say, where the hell did this guy come from? I had a podcast for 7 years before this podcast, and it was terrible and it looked bad. And in 7 years, I'll probably look back on this one and say, this looks bad, whatever. And there's nothing that's overnight about any of that work. No matter if it was a viral clip of this and this person, it's all about for me, the way I think about it is it's all about long-term, steady, consistent work over a very long time. And that's something, when I work with clients, I say, no matter how bad or good you think what we're making today is, in a year, you will say, this looks like shit. This sounds like shit. I hate that. Yep. So you have to keep pushing that boundary. Every project, I always try and just push the boundary, whether it's the story or the color or the audio or whatever, that little tiny, but that stuff adds up, man.
It does. And even so, like, just a real quick story. I once heard about somebody. They said that they were trying to get work as a director, as a creator, and they kept getting hired to make these little like fake movies that go inside of a real movie. You've all seen them, right? And he was really upset because he was like, this is nothing. This is mess. Like, it's slop. It's throwaway work. And then one day he got it in his head, you know what? I'm going to make these mini movies as amazing as possible. And and so he started doing that. And of course, that's when he started getting recognized. He was like, oh man, like, this is really fun. What if we gave you a little bit more? I'm not saying that's going to happen with everything, but the idea there of just taking the opportunities that you have and making the best out of them, using them as learning experiences, using them as putting in that work. 10,000 hours. There's a reason 10,000 hours is a thing. Like, doesn't matter. And to your point about that person who becomes viral off of one hit, what's the next thing they do? They panic, right? And then the next, now they're trying to recapture that one viral thing without putting in work, right? Absolutely. Every once in a while, someone gets lucky. One hit wonders, we know about them all the time. They can, that one song that was incredible, but their second song, you've never heard it. And you never heard anything else. So you got to put in that work. I absolutely agree. It's long, steady work.
Well, Steffon, we could probably talk till 2 a.m, but I really want to thank you for coming and talking to me. I know you've been very patient with our setup and all this stuff. People want to hire you, help them with their writing, help them with their creative direction, anything. Where can they get in touch with you?
Absolutely. www.steffonthomas.com. That's STEFFONTHOMAS.com. You can find me there. You can find me on social, just under my name, Steffon Thomas. And yeah, reach out. I help people with writing. I help people with making videos. I help people with screenplays. Screenwriting is my number one love, but I help people with their all kinds of creative projects. So yeah, that's how you find me. And I love all kinds of projects. So nothing scares me.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. This has been amazing.